Hi everybody, my name is Alex with Hake Hardware, and in this video we are going to set up a farmer on Windows 11 using the CLI. And this guide is specifically for non-cluster farmers, so there is a separate guide if you are running a cluster. This one is for if you're just going to run a node and a farmer. So there are a few prerequisites. First, you should have a node running, and if you still need to get your node running, you can follow the guide here. And then you should check the system requirements on the official wiki. And if you're going to be doing GPU plotting, you should check the GPU plotter wiki as well. Okay, so just to review, if you followed the node guide, you already have seen this, but we are going to be creating the farmer folder, and that's where we're going to put the executable for the farmer. Actually, one more requirement that I don't have in here is that, and I'm going to add it after this video, is that you need to have your disks prepared. So I do have two guides on preparing the disks. You can either do it with the disk management tool in Windows, that's the GUI, or if you want to use DiskPart, that is the CLI. So make sure you check out these guides if you want to get your disks prepared, what you're going to need to do in order to get a farm going. Okay, so jumping back here, we are going to be creating this farmer folder, and we'll put the executable inside there. And that's where we'll also be creating our farmer script. So let's jump into Windows and get started. So I'm going to open up my folder here. I'm going to go to my home directory, Autonomys, and then new folder, farmer. And then the next step will be to download the executable for the farmer. So we'll open up our browser. We'll go to the Autonomys subspace GitHub repo. On the right-hand side, you'll see the latest release. We'll click that. Yours might be a different version. And then we're going to find the farmer that works for us. So I know for me, I'm going to be downloading the Windows x86 Skylake. There are two different Windows farmers, and well, there's actually quite a few. So if you have a AMD GPU, you can download the ROCm version. If you have NVIDIA, you can just download the regular Windows version. And then there's some variants here listed for the different CPUs. So just make sure you're downloading the correct one. I'm going to open my downloads folder. I'm just going to right click and cut that, and then move to my Autonomys folder, and then paste my executable in there. Okay, now moving to the next step, we're going to create our PowerShell script. So to do that, we're going to open up Notepad, and I already have it open up here. And I'm just going to create a new tab. This was the node that we created. I can close out of that because I don't need it anymore. And then I'm going to switch over to the wiki again. And a quick note, if you didn't do this already when you set up your node, you do need to set the execution policy to remote signed. And you are going to need to identify the disks. We didn't go over that yet, but I'll go over that in a second. But for the farmer script, so if your node and farmer are on the same host, then you will just get the local farmer PowerShell script. And if your node and farmer will be on different hosts like this, then you're going to want to make sure you get the remote farmer PowerShell script. And the only real difference is in here, we're going to be specifying the node RPC URL. So it needs to know where the node is located on your internal network. Whereas when we look at the local one, that's not there because it's going to just automatically look for the node on the local host. So actually I'm going to go ahead and grab this. You can just do click the copy to copy the raw file, and then let's go back over to Windows here and we'll paste that in here. And the big thing that you're going to need to do is there's a few things actually. But first, before I forget, and as part of this, we're going to need to identify the disks that you want to use to farm. So you might already know them, and that's great. But let's go open up File Explorer here. We'll go to this PC, and I know that I'm going to be using these two disks. Now I already kind of got them set up, cheated a little bit to get these set up, but I'm going to be using the Y drive and the Z drive, so I just want to keep that in mind. And I have 127 gigabytes. That's actually gigabytes. Windows is weird. Um, but yeah, you want to keep in mind how much space you have as well. So for me, I'm going to be specifying, actually, sorry, that is gigabytes. So I'll be specifying 125, or I don't know. I think it might, now that I'm remembering it, it might actually be gigabytes. I don't know. Windows is weird. You're just going to want to make sure you select the right amount of space. There's no real need to leave like any free space, but just a personal preference, I'm going to leave a little bit of space there at the end. Okay, so jumping back into the script, there's a few things you're going to need to change. One is if you're using the remote script, you're going to want to make sure you update the IP address for your node and the port for your node. And then for Prometheus, if you're going to be in it, you can technically delete the Prometheus. This is for, it publishes metrics locally so that you can scrape them with Prometheus. You can remove this if you don't want that, but if you do want that, if your Prometheus service is local, you can leave that as is. If your Prometheus service is on a different computer, just like with the node, you're going to have to specify the internal IP address of that computer. You're going to want to make sure you update the reward address, or you're going to be giving me all of your rewards. And then update the executable. So if you're on a different version, this is November 6th. If there's like a November 20th or something, you're going to want to update that to the 20th. And same with like the Skylake versus V2. Basically, just make sure we have your downloaded file. Actually, it's in the farmer. You can just click it and then click it again and copy the name. And then just come in here and paste it. I think that's the best way. So the reward address will get populated automatically. The Prometheus IP import will get populated automatically. And then now we need to put in our path. So for me, the Y drive and the Z drive, I believe, let me just double check. Y drive, Z drive. I'm going to do 125 gigabytes, which is going to be leaving myself about two gigabytes or so left over. And then we're going to be spitting these out into a farmer.log file. So we'll have a log file that we'll be able to use. All right, now we need to save this. So File, Save As, and we're going to want to save it in our farmer drive. So you'll want to go to your home directory, Autonomys, Farmer, and then we're going to rename this farmer.ps1, and then all files as the Save As type, and then click Save. And then we can close out of that. And let's go into our farmer, and we can see now we have the executable and we have our farmer script here. So one thing to note, let's go back to the wiki. If you run the script and there's no output and no error, there's a good chance you need to install the Visual C++ redistributable, or else it's not going to work. So typically I think it gets installed automatically, but I actually had to do it for my Windows virtual machine, which is where I'm doing the tutorial. So just keep that in mind. And then let's see. Okay, there's two ways to run this script. And let me just actually bring you back into Windows here. So you can right click and run with PowerShell, and that's going to open up a terminal and it's going to run your farmer script. But if there's an error, the terminal closes out and you won't be able to see the error. So let's say like you mess something up. Another way to do it where you can actually see the errors is you right click, open in terminal, and then you're just going to type farmer and then tab, and that automatically selects your farmer.ps1 file, and then you can hit enter to start your farmer. So this is just a way where if there's an error, it's going to just show the error, whereas if you just right click, run in PowerShell, it'll just close out automatically if there's an error. So we are getting everything started. Right now, our farmer is up and running. We can see it found the two disks that I have. Yeah, two disks that I have. And we're going to be, it says that it's plotting sectors, but I can tell you right now it's not plotting. It's probably not going to plot until this piece cache sync finishes. And also, one other thing to note, Windows, I don't know if it always does this, but for me, Windows has this weird quirk where it has to like write the whole disk, kind of like clean the disk, I guess would be a good way of putting it. But it basically has to write like zeros or something like across the whole disk first before it starts actually doing anything. So for me, it took like a good 10, 15 minutes before the piece cache started to sync. So just keep in mind, like if it loads up and it says plotting sector and nothing's happening, you're going to have to wait for a little bit. Not only for the drives to get written over, but also for the piece cache to fully sync or at least get mostly synced, and then it'll start plotting. So hold tight if it seems like it's not moving. As long as you don't have any errors, it's probably like working in the background, and you could probably open up like um, your task manager and you can take a look at like what's going on. So right now I can see, my network's working pretty hard. It's downloading. There's no reads or writes, or there's not a lot of reads or writes on my disks, my SSDs, but when I initially launched the farmer before I did this guide, it was like 100% for both of these for like 10 minutes. So there is a little bit of initialization that needs to get done. So just keep that in mind if for some reason it takes a long time to start plotting. Okay, so yeah, that's really it. The piece cache is going to sync. You're going to start plotting. After your initial plotting, it's probably going to replot right away because sectors go stale over time. And since it's probably going to take a little bit of time to do your initial plotting, by the time that's done, sectors are going to be stale. It's going to replot, but it doesn't have to replot everything, just the stale sectors. So when you go to replot, it won't take as long. And then if it took long enough where there's some stale sectors, it might go into replotting again right away, but it should slowly lessen and lessen, and you shouldn't have to deal with too many replots over time. So that is it for this video. You now have your node running, your farmer running. There's going to be some more guides on how to monitor everything, so stay tuned, subscribe, and if you like the video, give it a like, and I'll see you in the next one.